حدثنا محمد بن عبيد الله قال حدثنا عبد العزيز بن أبي حازم عن أبيه عن أبي حازم عن سهل بن سعد رضي الله عنه قال
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, my guest, or my host, was generous enough to treat me to a fruit smoothie. Alhamdulillah, it was very refreshing, it was good, and we had a small discussion or debate on how to properly pronounce one of the main ingredients of this smoothie, which is the acai or acai berry. Some said acai, some said acai, and some said acai. Right? Which of those qira'at or those riwayat are most authentic? What's important is the berry coming from Brazil, being very nutritious, delicious, popular, etc. San Diego Blenders is the name of the smoothie company. Now we have smoothies on the East Coast. We have juice bars on the East Coast. Everybody likes fruit. People like fruits, so on and so forth. I remember once I did a khutbah about fruits. I try my best with the limited knowledge that I have, limited skill and talent that I have, limited time that I have, to present something respectable to the people. And I make an attempt to present something that's oftentimes out of the box, a little unorthodox. So I think it was a few years back, I did a khutbah about fruits. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone do a khutbah or a talk on fruits in life, let alone in Islam, and the important role that fruits play in our lives as human beings, let alone as Muslims. Something that's mentioned in the Quran in abundance, and one of, not the only, but one of the most vivid of the pleasures, joys, and bounties of paradise. That's a fact. Every verse that talks about Jannah doesn't speak on silk brocade, doesn't speak about Hurul Ain, doesn't speak about Uridwan, so on and so forth. But if you look at most of the ayats, not all, that talk about the rewards of paradise and what people will receive in paradise, it oftentimes speaks on fruits. Think about that now. Thamarat. Alright? Think about the concept of wine. Alright? Oftentimes Allah talks about the fruits of Jannah, fruits of paradise. They look similar, they may seem like they're the same type, but they smell differently, they taste differently, etc. So what's important is the roles that fruits play in our lives as human beings, and the roles that fruits play in our lives as Muslims, when we speak in the literal sense, or the metaphorical or the figurative sense, the fruits of one's labor. And we never say the vegetables of your labor, the crops of your labor. We never say the gold and the silver of your labor. We never say the dollars of your labor. Well, we always say the fruits of your labor. Patience is bitter, but its fruits are sweet. And that's something which is very interesting. Now, blending different fruits, blending different things to make them into a harmonious drink. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it really doesn't work, and other times it's disastrous. And that is our talk and our discussion today. Mixing things and mixing elements. The biggest ingredient that should be is Islam. But keeping it real, Islam isn't the only ingredient that's going to go into this smoothie of life. Let's be realistic now. There are many other elements, ingredients, influences, direct or indirect, that are going to be thrown into that violent blender. And it's going to be presented for you to drink, or you are the drink. So how much Islam is in your smoothie, your drink? How much acai? What's the berry content in this versus the white sugar content, or the brown sugar content, or no sugar, or agave? How much ice is in your smoothie? Are the chunks of ice big and crunchy, or is the ice smoothly ground, a puree, etc.? So getting married, staying married, having a successful life, having a career, going to school, working, pleasing my parents, staying away from drugs, alcohol, opioids, staying away from pornography, staying away from gambling, this addiction, this type of violence, etc., pleasing my parents, making my parents happy, trying to be a student of knowledge, etc., etc. There's a lot going on. And you, the youth, are thrown and cast into this blender. That's you. And what final finished product will you be? Will you be a good smoothie? Will you taste good or not? And if the smoothie tastes good, is it healthy for you? As the Prophet ﷺ tells us in the authentic hadith, with regards to the different levels of relationship with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The believer who reads the Quran, the believer who doesn't read the Quran, the munafiq that reads the Quran, and the munafiq that doesn't read the Quran. Pleasant smell, pleasant taste. No smell, pleasant taste. Pleasant smell, bitter taste. Unpleasing or displeasing smell, bitter taste. So the drink tastes good, but is it good for me? Or the drink is nasty, it doesn't taste that good, it's really not, a good. Just look at the term. Just think about that. It doesn't say blended fruits with drink, with ice, with dairy, but it's called a smoothie. So the drink itself is supposed to be what? Smooth. You understand? It's supposed to be a harmonious mixture. Not too much of this, not too little of that. It's supposed to be a cool, refreshing, pleasant experience. When you take the sip, bismillah, it tastes good, it feels good, and it's supposed to be good for you. That's the asl of a smoothie. However, when other elements are put in, other ingredients are put in, elements are ignored, neglected, or the hand isn't but so skilled and talented, the smoothie isn't made with love and care and affection, the people are no longer taking pride in their drinks and their smoothies and their labels, our name, then we have a bad smoothie. It doesn't taste that good. It's full of sugar, it's full of colors, it's full of this. It's not good for you. And it's going against the original name and purpose of the drink. It's not a fruit drink, it's not a carbonated drink, a smoothie. You understand what I'm trying to say or not? So of all of the different challenges that you have as Muslim youth living in the world today, living in the United States, living in California, living in San Diego, the top of your priorities should be pleasing Allah, the Mighty and the Most High. And then after that, it should be pleasing your parents, your mother and your father. And then so on and so on and so forth. You have to prioritize your ingredients. You have to prioritize your blending methods, how much ice, how little ice, what button to press on the blender, the Ninja, or whatever machine that you're using, etc. So that's what we're going to talk about now. And that's what we want to discuss now. And everybody on the same page, inshallah ta'ala. And the idea of this came to me when I got the drink, alhamdulillah. Okay, I normally drink tea, anyone who knows that. Anyone who watches my videos know I normally have tea, but we're going to mix it up a little bit today, a little unorthodox. We out here on the West Coast, San Diego, America's finest city. Bismillah. So with that being said, I want to hear from you guys now. What are the challenges? What are the understandings and misunderstandings that we have with regards to society in general, but marriage specifically? And marriage being one of the most important players, one of the key players in the game of life, whether you realize it or realize it not. We have volunteer, or brother or sister, inshallah. I'll start it off, what makes a Muslim youth nowadays want to get married? Why should I be married? I'm 19, I'm 18, I'm 20. I finished school, I'm going to school, I want to go overseas and study. I'm helping out my father's family business. Why should I get married? What reason do I have to get married as a Muslim youth, Muslim teenager? Go ahead, Akhi. You complete half of your deen. How is that? Explain that to me. How does that make sense? How is getting married half of my religious duty, or half of my religious duties to Allah? Okay, how does that even make sense? How is half of your deen just having a wife? Keeps you away from haram. So a big part of one's religion isn't necessarily what you do of good, but it is what you avoid of bad. And that's not all of it, but that's only what? Half of it. We don't put that type of junk in our smoothies. But that doesn't mean that we put good stuff in it either, does it? But for sure we stay away from the what? The bad stuff. Correct or incorrect? We stay away from the stuff which shouldn't be in the drink. So getting married protects one and allows one to complete half of his deen, quote unquote. All right, what other reasons do I have to get married? What incentives do I have? Why should I get married? Why do I have to be married? Do I have to be married? Or can I just, chill and relax and just be single?
Righteous offspring?
Righteous offspring. What does that mean? That's a big word.
A child that makes dua for you or does good deeds and you reap the rewards.
You producing children that are positive. Children that will carry on things. Not your name, your lineage, your blood, your this and that, but the greatest of all your needs in hereafter, which is dua. As a wealthy man was asked once, they asked him, how he became wealthy, what are the secrets of being wealthy, and most importantly, what's the difference between being rich and being wealthy? There's a difference. Having money versus wealth. So he said, in my personal opinion, the difference between having money, being rich, being famous, and being wealthy is that when you're wealthy, you make money when you do nothing. And your income in large, huge amounts is automatic. It's on autopilot. I'm on this tropical island, white sand, beach, my feet are kicked up, this exotic drink, sitting under an umbrella, so on and so forth, and millions of dollars are being added as I speak. That's true wealth. Your money, your income is not by you sweating, hurting your back, typing, standing for hours, performing here, but you sit back, do nothing, and the money comes in abundance. That's true wealth. And that is the concept of that the Prophet ﷺ tells us when the son of Adam dies, in the qata'a anhu amaluhu illa min thalathatin. All of his deeds cease, except for three, only three things. And we all know that the Prophet ﷺ said, sadaqatin jariyah, aw ilmin yuntafa'u bihi, وفي رواية أو مصحفا ورثه وفي رواية مشهورة أو ولد صالح يدعو له أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, as a child that is righteous that makes dua for you. And in most cases, a child that is going to be righteous only comes from marriage. For argument's sake, a child that's born in an illegitimate manner could become and grow to be righteous. But in most cases, or oftentimes, that doesn't necessarily happen or isn't the case. Right. What's important is, one of the reasons why I should get married is that I can have children that will pray for me when I can no longer pray for myself, basically. That's what you're telling me. Autopilot. You're in the ground, you're in the grave, and you're reaping some of your work and some of your efforts. Versus, I want to get married because children are cute and they're beautiful and I like children, I like kids. Or you need to get married to carry on your family name, carry on your existence, your lineage. But to think higher, I need to get married because I can't live forever. And there's no way that I'm going to be free from mistake and from error. I'm going to need someone that's going to pray for my soul, not carry on my business after me, not carry on my name and my reputation after me, like most of us think. But it's deeper than that. And that is, I'm in the ground, I have no power, there's nothing that I can do. I'm going to need someone that's going to pray for me. As the Messenger of Allah ﷺ told us how to think in this manner, in the authentic narration, when the man came to him complaining about his brother, كان أخوان على عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فكان أحدهما يحترف والآخر يأتي النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. The hadith states that there were two brothers in the time of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. One of them was a worker and one of them was a student of the Prophet. So the one who worked, the one who made money, the one who was in the dunya, not even in a haram sense, but he was earning money in the dunya, he went to the Prophet and he complained to the Prophet ﷺ about his brother that was a liability. His brother that was, I'm taking care of him. All he wants to do is just study all day and listen to you. But is that fair, O Messenger of Allah? And the Prophet ﷺ, he never told the man that what he was saying was wrong or off. But he said to him simply, concisely, beautifully, which there's so many hadiths like this, in which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ only focuses on the solution. And he doesn't focus on magnifying or amplifying the problem like we do. He doesn't get caught up in the glue trap of the problem. This is the solution. لَعَلَّكَ تُرْزَقُ بِهِ. Maybe and perhaps Allah is giving you the rizq through your brother. Because of his devotion, his spirituality, the rizq is coming to you. So the concept of the greatest benefit is not only to have a family member, someone from your line, from your blood, but a conscious family member. And one is going to realize I have to make dua for this person for such and such A, B, C, D, E, F, G reason. That is the greatest blood relation to have. As many of the pious predecessors would say, one of the worst enemies, one of the worst people to have coming to your janazah as someone who doesn't have that consciousness and that awareness of the deen. That person can be an enemy to you, as the Quran affirms. People that come to the funeral to conspire, to argue, wealth, inheritance, you owe me this, I owe him that, so on and so forth. Most people, if you pay attention, when they go to a funeral, they're crying because of their own loss. That's a fact. They're sad. They're bereft. That you're going from them. And not only a few people are actually crying and sad because of my blood father, my son, my this and that is in the grave now, and he's beginning his or her real life, and the questions are coming, the squeezing, the tightness of the grave is coming, maybe the punishment, we don't know. And that's the real scary, terrifying thing. So some of the pious predecessors, they would say, what could you want more than a righteous brother, not from your blood? So if you have someone that's righteous making dua for you, and he's your son or your daughter, khalas, you've won. That person will pray for you. And in most cases, you can't get a righteous child except through marriage. But that's a little too high for us. I need some worldly benefits behind marriage. The spiritual stuff is nice, is good, half your deen, but I need something worldly. Because we're worldly people. We live in this world, and everything we have is based off of this world, this name brand, this player, this person, this personality, this influencer, this singer, this rapper, this athlete, this etc. We're attached to tangible things, material things. Not too many of us are, that spiritual like that. So I need something worldly, a worldly incentive that will allow me to get married. With all of the difficulties and challenges of getting married. Keep that in mind now, right? You're going against the tide. You understand this, right? The odds are against you. Right? Marriage is a challenge for someone who's old, let alone someone who's young. Right? Go ahead, Akhi.
I was going to mention the hadith, but
I need something worldly, material.
when you mentioned the shahwat, the desires, should you marry while you're young if you can, if that's...
The desires, that's a spiritual issue. That's a spiritual thing. We live in a world in which you are supposed to follow your desires. Fulfill your desires. You only live once. You're young. Have fun. It's natural to feel that way. Right? No one can tell you what you can and cannot do with your desires, etc. We need something material. What's the benefit of a young Muslim getting married today? Anybody else? In the back, the Nike sweater.
Allah enriches you.
It does what?
Allah enriches you.
Allah enriches you. Once again, spiritual. We need some material. Think about your answer. Just tweak your answer just a bit. There you go. There you go. That's appealing to a non-Muslim, to a Muslim that isn't religious. Whether you like it or not, getting married shouldn't be a reason behind you being broke and poor, but it should be the opposite. Marriage makes you more successful. It makes you work harder. It makes you more shrewd. It makes you save money. It makes you manage and deal with money in a better way, if it's done correctly. Versus, I have no responsibilities. I buy whatever sneakers or shoes I want. glasses, food. You know, is that making me better, more successful with money? No boundaries, no rules? Or is the opposite make a person have a better touching or contact with money? So for argument's sake, marriage produces wealth. That's one way to look at it. That's an excellent answer. Fine. Anybody else? Why should I get married? I'm only 19. Why not get married when I'm 25 or 30? I'll finish school, engineering, civil engineering, inshallah, or medical school, master's degree. I'll pay back my debts, thousands and thousands of dollars in interest debts. I'll buy a house, inshallah. You know, and all the trimmings that come with marriage, according to our traditions and our customs and cultures. You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars you're going to spend just to get married, right? After going to school for all of those years. Why should I do this? What reason do I have? All right, let's move forward to the next question. If I'm already married and I'm having problems, like everyone has problems, arguments, fights, we can't agree. The sister that I married, she's someone totally different than I thought she was. Or the brother that I married, the sister says he's a total different brother that I fell in love with. Or I never loved him from the beginning. I was forced. It was arranged. It was a cultural marriage. I didn't know my husband until, you know, the night in which we consummated the marriage. Or, you know, why should I stay in this marriage? Why should I work to keep this marriage? Or khalas, just get divorced, we all agree? If no one can mention a reason, that means we should do what? We should move forward and just part ways, right? We have no suggestions, no answers, nobody? Nobody? Khayran, inshallah. Well, it's pretty clear. Next time somebody contacts me saying, complaining about their husband and wife, I'm going to send them to you guys. Inshallah. And say, you know, just get the divorce. Khalas. There's no reason to stay into the marriage. There's no reasons, right? All right, let's move forward now. Why shouldn't I get married being young? Anybody feel differently here? What's the reason to wait, to be patient? Or to just be, you know, celibate? Practice abstinence. Do you have to get married? Is it obligatory in Islam? Is it a sin to be single?
Maturity and financial issues.
Maturity and financial issues. All right, can you expound on that?
Like some young people are like, I think we're too tying together. Like if you're not mature, you could be making money, but you could be spending the money the wrong way.
Financial responsibility and maturity going hand in hand, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so is it safe to say that most people today, Muslim youth, are immature?
Yeah.
What's the cause behind that, in your opinion? Social media. All right. Any other influences? Music. Okay. Anything else? Friends. Okay. Fine. And what about the money? You don't have enough money, or you need to save it, or what? You need to learn how to spend it. Save what?
Sometimes you don't have enough money, but
You don't have enough money.
But if you do have the right amount of money, like learning how to spend the money and saving the money.
Economics.
Basically.
So when does a person become mature?
That's different for everybody, but I feel like a person becomes mature when they
طيب جزاك الله خير. نعم أخي. تفضل.
About the money situation is like, imagine you're on social media and imagine you get married. Your wife's like, oh wow, look, my friend, her husband bought her this bag, you know? And it makes you feel like, wow, like, you know, I have to buy her a bag. So it's all about like competition and social media. And I feel like nowadays things don't work out because like, it's like one, it's a gender war. Two, is more of like, oh, who has a bigger bag? It's like, that's not.
What type of bags they getting? What brand names? Tell me the names.
A Birkin bag.
A Birkin bag. All right, there we go. Be specific. Tayyip, what else?
Or LV, like,
All right, keep it. We went in. That's right. We went. That's
so,
right.
Like, that gets into your head, and it makes you like, if you're a man, it makes you like, wow, like, bro, are you broke? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like competition. So I feel like that's what plays. And also to add on to that is like, okay, if I get married young, bro, like, your homie could be the shaitan. Oh, you're missing out, bro. There might be someone that's better looking. So like all of that plays into that.
Okay, so basically from both of that, Jazakumullah khairan, thank you for your participation. Very good answers. That shows us that a person not necessarily being incapable of getting married, but because of the standards, the prison walls that we've made and trapped ourselves inside. You can't get married until you have this amount of money, until you can afford this, until you can show off that, and until you can compete with the other people, basically. But for real, who doesn't have the power to provide the basic necessities that you need? But basic necessities versus the Birkin bag, like we said. And then the shame and the guilt, the jealousy, the competition, the envy. As the Prophet said, we mentioned the hadith earlier, مَا أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمُ الْفَقْرَ وَلَكِنْ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمُ التَّكَاثُرَ. Poverty isn't the thing that I'm afraid of. Money is present, wealth is present. The Muslims have resources. However, I'm afraid that you will have a takathur, in which you will compete with each other and fight with each other and boast and brag. And now that's a long discussion in the Quran and Sunnah with regards to boasting and bragging. And if you look at the Quran and Sunnah, very interestingly enough, you see that we find the concept of boasting and bragging being condemned and looked down upon. And then we find other texts from Quran and Sunnah in which Allah Azza wa Jal brags and boasts. But the people that Allah brags and boasts about are very, very different than our concept of bragging or boasting. Such as the day of what? Who does Allah brag and boast about and to who? Who does Allah brag to in the Quran and Sunnah? Talab al-Hadith, you guys should know this. Who does Allah, we have two directions of bragging and boasting. First is, what are you bragging and boasting about? Right? And then secondly, who are you bragging and boasting to? You guys understand this question or not? So, first question is, in the Quran and Hadith, do we have verses or hadiths that talk about bragging and boasting? Allah boasting. Allah showing off something or someone to somebody. Do we have that? Such as what? To the angels. There we go. So that's first and foremost, who are you showing off to? Who are you flexing for? Allah is flexing and showing off to some of the best of His created beings, if not the best according to some scholars. Number two, why is Allah boasting and bragging to those angels? What does Allah say to those angels? Look at my handsome servants, my strong servants, my wealthy servants. What does Allah say? Who is Allah boasting about?
Allah's servants who obey Him.
You need something specific. What's the hadith that Allah boasts? يَتَبَاهَا بِهِمْ الْمَلَائِكَةَ. Such as?
One of them, a young slave.
That's not it. Very simple answer. If you guys memorize the hadiths, we will know. What's important is someone being dusty, disheveled, Haji, pilgrimage, Arafah, Allah coming close, boasting to the angels, asking them what have they come for? Unzuru ila ibadi ha'ulai, shu'athan ghubara. Right? Why have they come? Versus us showing off for flashy, blingy things. Sight versus perception. So the concept of I'm competing, takathur, al-hakum takathur. In order to get married, I gotta have this, I have to show off that, I have to take this picture, this video, this selfie, I gotta post this, I gotta have, and if you don't, you're a bad husband, you're a bad wife, you're poor, you're broke, you're dirty, you're behind. That's something that we need to fix, but that has to be fixed at the core and not the surface. And the problems with regards to Muslim youth getting married or staying married because of the comparisons in social media, that's only a surface issue. And the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu, he gives us the solution by telling us not to look at those who are above us, but to look at those who are less fortunate. For us never ever to look down upon Allah's blessings. And that's a fact in life. Whatever you're going through, whatever problems you have, whatever thoughts you have in your mind, I guarantee if you look at other people, you'll come to the realization my problems aren't that bad. And there's always someone who's doing worse than I'm doing. But if you're not implementing that hadith, if you're not thinking about that text, and then you just social media, you become a victim, and you fall victim to the depression, to the suicidal thoughts, or maybe unfortunately suicide. You fall victim to being down and out, and always thinking that you have less, and that you've been oppressed and wronged the worst, and thinking that someone else's grass is always greener. That's a fact. And there's a big problem with marriage, and it isn't specific, it isn't exclusive to the youth, but our parents are victims of this. But obviously we're living in the social media era. There's a difference. So we're going to be victimized by that thing even more. All right. Any other reasons? I'm listening, Akhi.
Like if you're a man and you have enough money.
And then we mentioned something else too, of course, the gender war. We'll get back to that, inshallah.
If you're a man and you have enough money and you're able to like cook and clean for yourself and provide for yourself, you might think that having a wife isn't gonna really add much to your life and that you're
I'm happy being by myself, basically. There's no need. I don't need a woman to do anything, or I don't need a man to do anything for me. I got my own money, got my own Birkin bags, not bag. I don't need nobody to provide for me. I don't need no man. I don't need none of that. I'm independent. Sounds good. Looks good. But man or woman, are you really keeping it real with yourself at the end of the day, at the end of the night? Are you really happy by being by yourself? Is the human being a creature to be by himself, by nature, or psychology, whatever word or term you want to, is that, are you really being honest? Are you really pleased and content with your life? I don't need kids. I don't want kids. I have a career. I don't need no woman. A woman is going to slow me down. I'm too busy doing this. I'm too busy doing that. Are you being honest with yourself? You wake up in the morning, you go to sleep, and are you keeping it real with yourself? That question can only be answered by you yourselves. All right, Tayyip, Jazakallah khairan. From the sisters, we didn't hear anything from the sisters. Everything is one-sided from the brothers. Nothing from the sisters? I'm listening. Bismillah. Marriage brings you peace. Where does it say that in the Quran, sister?
I don't know exactly, but I definitely read it.
Think about it. Sit down, think about it. Where does it say that marriage brings you peace? Think about it. This is very important. I'm not trying to test you or challenge you, but I'm trying to get you to think deeper now. It's something that I want from your answer. Allah, I'll give you some hints, okay? Deal? All right. So, in most cases, you're talking about a verse in the Quran that doesn't speak about marriage. Or you could be talking about that verse, but let's go deeper than that. Let's talk about the first human being that was created was who? Adam. Good. Then who was next? Hawa, which is Eve, quote unquote. All right. What does Allah say? Why did He create Eve from Adam?
Because Adam, he wasn't fulfilled, so it's complete, I guess.
No, that's not it. It's something else that it says. What does Allah say? For what purpose? لِيَسْكُنَ إِلَيْهَا. For Adam alayhi salatu wasalam to find sakina, to find serenity in his wife Hawa. So Allah doesn't talk about marriage in this ayah. Allah talks about man and woman, period. When there's a man, there's a woman, there's a connection. The man is going to find solace, comfort, peace of mind in a woman, let alone Islamic marriage. And that's by nature. All right, any other reasons? Nothing, guys? That's it? We have nothing else. No one else had nothing else to say, nothing else to mention? You guys are shy, shamed. What's the issue? Is it me? تفضل أخي.
It's not me, all right? But,
Bismillah. And we're going to get back to the gender role thing. The gender wars, the words you use.
Yes. And then also, the big thing I hear all the time, especially obviously on social media, is mahar money.
All right, what is that? What is a mahar? In simple terms, what is a mahar?
The money that you owe.
The money that you have to give when you what?
Get married.
When you want to get married. Okay. All right. So why is that a reason why I shouldn't get married or I can't get married?
It's not a reason. It's just like
Oh, it's a reason.
two.
It's definitely. There may have to be a good reason, but it's a reason.
Yeah, two parties like don't see eye to eye when it comes to that price. Like it's like a
Price?
contract.
So, I'm confused now. I thought you were talking about marriage between two human beings, not a product or a commodity. This is a price. When I pick up a microphone, I'm thinking about the price, the cost. You're talking about taking someone's daughter or sister and marrying her, taking her to your home, providing for her, making a family with her, and now we're mentioning the word or the term price. You get it? We're already what? We've already what? We're derailed. We're messed up already. Putting a price. The mindset is already off. There's a gift that you offer that we accept. That's fair. That's traditional. Versus this is a price tag. Nothing less, definitely more if you want to pay more. Get the point? And that goes back to that hadith. That I don't fear poverty upon you. People, men not having no money, they don't offer any type of mahar, any type of sadaq to the woman. But akhsha alaykum at-takathur. I'm afraid that the people will boast and brag. Because this woman got married at this high price, now there's no way that you can get married for a lower price. That's a big problem. And obviously that problem doesn't start with the children. It doesn't start with the teenagers, the young Muslims, but that begins and starts with the parents. Now, there was one brother I knew, he was from Yemen some years ago, Medina. He was a great student of knowledge, mashallah. Rather, he was from Jeddah, not in Medina. So, he wanted to get married to a sister, a Yemeni sister. And she was, available for marriage. She wanted to marry him. But the family couldn't agree on the price tag. The girl said, I don't need a super duper, price on me. Bargain or whatever the case may be, right? But the family said no. Because your sister got married at this price, you have to get married at the same price. She says, I don't need that, I don't want that, I just want to marry him. You have to do it. You have to obey and you have to follow. So the concept, and that's a long discussion with regards to culture, which is a very, very sticky, hairy discussion that many of us aren't comfortable having. Culture. And there are different extremes with regards to culture. To what extent does Islam give room or space for culture? 100%? Nothing, all culture is bad, evil, haram, is just Quran and Sunnah? Or is it in the middle? In which cultural norms and practices are welcomed, are allowed, are encouraged, as long as they don't go against the explicit or implicit teachings of Kitab and Sunnah. And even those who know this and who understand this, 99% of us can't follow it and can't obey it. I know it's wrong. I know the culture is against the Quran, but it's the culture. And the last final stage of the production line is you. The young ones that want to get married, that keep silent, that obey, that follow the rule which is clearly against what Allah and His Messenger want. And then that passes on the cultural dominance to the next generation. Instead of you speaking out against it, no. And you breaking the cycle, even if that means you martyring yourself. You have to take a fall, take a hit. Just be quiet, just go with the flow. Don't say nothing, don't make problems, bismillah. All right, what, I'll do it just to make my mom happy. I'll do it just because of my culture. You keep silent. And then your little brother, he now has to do what? What does your little brother have to do now? Same thing. And then your sister, they come behind you, and the first thing your parents are going to say is what? Who did it? They're going to say what? So-and-so did it, so now what? You can do it. It's not that bad. Can you marry someone without love? Should you love someone before you marry them? Marry them, love first? There's a long argument, whatever people say about that. But I don't love this man. I have no desire to marry this man. How can I be with this man? How can I sleep with this man? I don't know anything about him. I don't love him. I don't like him. I don't like the way he looks. Shut up. Your older sister did it. Your aunt did it. And I did it too. So therefore, you can and will do it. So you keep silent. You don't say anything. You don't go against that tide that's clearly against Quran and Sunnah. Are you helping the situation or worsening the situation? You guys understand the point? By you keeping silent and keeping the peace, you're only making the tradition stronger for the next generation. As the Messenger of Allah ﷺ told us, with regards to the woman, the young girl that was married off to a man that she did not approve of. And she said, لِيَرْفَعَ بِي خَسِيسَتَهُ. The only reason why he married me to this man was to raise his own status, his low status. And the woman, she said to the Prophet ﷺ, قَدْ أَجَزْتُ مَا صَنَعَ. I'm okay with it. But I wanted to know, I wanted to be clear that men can't do that. You can't just force a grown woman into a marriage that she doesn't approve of. So the moral of the story is, she was all right with it, but she spoke out against it for the purpose of what? For the following generation of women not to do what? To suffer from it. Everyone understand this? The concept of you being okay, it really doesn't matter to me. I can take one for the team. I'll do it just to keep my father and my mother happy, or not to shame my race or my tribe or my culture. That may be fine. But know for sure, you're now making it easier for the people to keep doing their wrong acts for the following people. So that's a big problem. With regards to culture, that's a long discussion. The harms of many cultural practices. Incorrect culture which comes before Quran and Sunnah. A culture in which Quran and Sunnah has to go through its lens and filter. Islam has to go through the lens or the filter of my culture. Right? That's a big problem. People going against their culture unnecessarily, that's a long discussion, and so on and so forth. Does Islam mean that you can't eat, drink, and dress how your culture, what is normal in your culture? Does that mean that? That cultural values and norms have no place whatsoever? Does it mean that? No. But the concept of the mahar, and you have to pay so much money just to get married. And obviously that's the mahar. Does that include in the party, the gold, the house, the money all the palms you have to grease? Everyone has, all right? So you're going into marriage with a great deal of financial debt. Something that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ sought Allah's refuge from. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal hazan. He sought Allah's refuge from 8 cancers. And that's that's a lecture in itself, that hadith about the 8 cancerous things that the Prophet ﷺ sought Allah's refuge from. Those 8 tumorous things. And from them, he said, وَضَلَعِ الدَّيْنِ. He says, وَغَلَبَةِ الرِّجَالِ وَضَلَعَةِ الدَّيْنِ كَمَا قَالَ. He says, being overpowered by men and debt. And Aisha radiallahu anha was asked, what did the Prophet always make dua to Allah for? And she mentioned he would always ask Allah's refuge and protection from debt, maghrim. Why? And the Prophet he told them why. Is that when a man is in debt, he does what? He makes promises, he breaks those promises. He says something and he doesn't come through. Debt is a big, huge problem in society. So I'm starting off my marriage with this huge weight on my back. What type of animosity is that going to cause in my heart for the woman? We get into an argument, we get into a fight. What's the first thing I'm going to say and throw in my wife's face? You know how much I pay for you? Do you? Do you know how much debt I had to go through for you? If she doesn't meet his expectations of beauty or this or that, what's the first thing he's going to throw in her face? What's the first thing a man's going to say? No one knows the answer? We ain't keeping it real, are we, Mavi, huh? Not keeping it real. What's the first thing you want to say? You go to a store, the device is faulty. The customer service is giving you a runaround. What's the first thing you want to say at the counter?
Refund.
No, what's the first thing you want to say before the refund? No doubt about it. This cost me an arm and a leg. It ain't supposed to break. It ain't supposed to stop working. It's not supposed to be flickering and stuttering. This is cost top dollar. It's not some cheap rinky-dink type of thing I brought, right? So you're going into the marriage with that negative energy. You're going into that marriage with throwing a favor in her face. You're going into that marriage with expectations. You were costly, you were expensive. I broke my back to get you. What do you mean you can't, or you don't know how to, or you don't want to? What do you mean? Your father, how much animosity are you going to have towards him? He broke your back in half just to take his daughter. That's a big problem. But not too many people want to talk about this. And the sad reality is that the people of knowledge, the imams, the leaders of the community, in most cases, they're going to keep silent. And in most cases, they themselves are victims of their own culture. So nothing is going to change. unless somebody steps up and someone says enough is enough. Enough nonsense, enough nonsense. Somebody has to say something. Someone has to speak out against this. You're paying all of this money just to fulfill half your need, just to get married, just to do the right thing. So therefore, instead of me paying all of this money, dealing with divorce, dealing with drama, having to buy a Birkin bag or whatever because of Instagram or whatever the case may be, I just live single. And obviously if you leave single, then you're going to have one or two options, a fork in the road. You're either going to be single and celibate, the reality of that, or you're going to be single and you're going to fulfill your natural desires. And once you do that, we know that you're ruined and you're destroyed. Once you have no control over your sexual desires, the game is over. Deen and dunya. A man's career oftentimes is ruined because of what? No doubt about that. Different illnesses, diseases, and infections. There's no doubt about that. You're always trying to achieve and chase something because of someone else oppressing you and violating you with regards to their sexual desires, etc., etc., etc. So the moral of the story is, there are many different elements, guys, that we have in a successful marriage and Muslim youth pursuing that beautiful path of getting married, of doing the right thing, trying to please Allah, trying to establish a family, trying to have happiness and prosperity, trying to have peace of mind by being married, having that companion, having that partner, having a husband, having a wife, having children or not having children. There are many different things that are going to come between you and that. And to be honest, the odds, the cards aren't stacked in your favor in our society because of our parents, because of style, because of fashion, because of the economy, prices, because of health insurance, politics, race, tribe, color, skin tone. There's so many different things between you and between being happy and having a smile on your face. And we live in a society which having a fake smile is okay, even though you're suffering and hurting and aching on the inside. But as long as you're outwardly happy, you're outwardly smiling, you obey the formalities of life, that's all that matters. And the Muslims are not exempt from that. Muslims, oftentimes they don't care about the content. As long as it seems happy, I'm broke, I'm poor, I'm in debt, but my marriage banquet has to show the people that I have money. I have to put on a front. I have to show the people that we're living, even though I'm in severe debt, just by this one nikah. Something is off with our mindset. And until we change that mindset, until we start thinking critically, until we start thinking out of the box, until we have the courage to stand up against the beast or the beasts. They're hungry and greedy and bloodthirsty. They want to eat us alive, swallow us whole. Then we're going to continue to suffer. And there's nothing going to be, it is going to be anything more than the exchange of players. One day it's you, one day it's me, this one, that one, man, woman, and the list goes on. So thinking critically in Islam, thinking critically outside of Islam, using our heads, our minds. Does this make sense? Our culture is this way, but doesn't it make sense to do something differently sometimes? We live in America. We're not living in the same country that where we came from or which our parents came from. We don't do this back home, but you do it here, don't you? Why? You ever ask yourself that question? Why do you do things differently? Because you know in this country it's the better way of doing it. You know this makes the most sense. This brings you more profit to do this. So you've relinquished a cultural norm because it was convenient for you and it was advantageous to you. But an Islamic ruling that's being violated or ignored and neglected because of culture, you have to obey your culture. And then we have to legitimize our backwards cultural practices through a vague interpretation, through a weak hadith, through some type of, fatwa or madhab. And obviously you guys are at the bottom. You're the victims of all of that. And you can't complain about being the victims until you're willing to make a change. If you're unwilling to light a candle, never curse the darkness. It's the bottom line. You don't want to fix it. You don't want to change it. You don't make an attempt. Don't complain about the pain and the suffering that you go through. So, bidnillahi ta'ala, I feel that if we can do that as Muslims, young Muslims, new generation, fresh blood, as they say, I think 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, maybe sooner than that, you guys can make a difference. You can change the tide by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that doesn't mean that you have to be disrespectful to your parents. It doesn't mean that you neglect or relinquish all of your culture. I'm not telling you that. It doesn't mean that you act like you know everything, your parents don't have the experience. That's not what I'm telling you. But I am telling you critical thinking is most powerful right now. So think critically, to ask these serious questions. And there's so many different Quranic parallels that Allah Azza wa Jal teaches us to think critically. Ibrahim alayhi salam with the idols. That's critical thought. The Messenger of Allah alayhi salam with the man who accused his wife of cheating on him because the child had a different skin tone than his. He responded to the man with critical thought. The Prophet ﷺ telling the companions, وَفِي بُطِيَحَدِكُمْ صَدَقَةً, when you fulfill your desires with your wife, it's charity. How can that be? He gave them critical thought. And there's so many ayats and so many ahadith that teach us how to think critically. And that is the beginning. That's the very first step in turning any sprocket or wheel in the opposite direction. Grinding in the opposite direction. It's just thinking about it. And you go to a therapist or a counselor, that's the first thing they're going to tell you as well. In order to get off of this, to overcome this addiction or this bad habit, you have to stop thinking like that. You have to think critically. You have to get rid of your mindset. You have to remove your mindset, which is a backwards mindset. And the Muslims, unfortunately, we become victims of this. We have been for many, many years. May Allah Azza wa Jalla bless us all. May Allah help us all. And may Allah guide each and every one of us. I hope that this message or this reminder or this discussion, which I really wanted it to be, a critical discussion and a dialogue, not just me talking to you, I hope that it will fall upon open ears, open hearts, receptive hearts, and eyes that are open, not closed, not shut, not blinking, but eyes that can clearly see. And thus, in order for us to enjoy the blessing of Islam, how it is supposed to be enjoyed, and not for us to suffer and to suffer misery. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best, and with Him is all success. I'm not sure if there are questions of your time. If you guys have any questions, maybe you don't have any, I don't mind entertaining them. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Allah surely knows best. With regards to the announcement we made, our latest publication, which isn't that new, The Way of the Disciple. And this is a book here that I put together with regards to studying correctly and systematically, coming from a Western country, an English-speaking country, traveling to North Africa, or traveling to the Far East, South Africa, or the Indian subcontinent, or the Middle East, etc., studying traditional sciences of Islam. How to be a student of knowledge, a respected student of knowledge, how to study systematically, properly, some of my life experiences, some of my tricks of the trade, which I feel allowed me, by Allah's permission, to have some success, not too much, but some, The Way of the Disciple. You can check it out. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Copies are very limited. Anyone who wants their book signed or autographed, we can do that as well. Jazakumullahu khairan. There are questions? We have time. We have time for questions. Abdul Wali, we're taking questions now or no?
Yeah, we can take a few questions.
Inshallah. Go ahead, Akhi.
How do we navigate like cultural differences between like a parent that was raised in a different country and with culture that's not beneficial, and children wanting to be good to their parents, but the cultural conflict is not beneficial in this society?
Understood. How to have that discussion with your parents. The cultural differences. My parents are from back home. They came to this country in this year, that year. I was born and raised. I'm British. Period. Everything about me is British. The only thing which isn't British is my blood, my features. But my language, food, dress, culture, sports, my mindset is British. But my parents come from Kashmir or Pakistan. All right? Or Somalia, wherever you come from. It's a big, big issue. If I could summarize the points, then the first point would be, number one, never, ever argue. Never argue with your parents. It's a waste of time. You are going to be accused of being disrespectful, being a bad son or a bad daughter. You can't win an argument. If you beat your mother or father in an argument, if you win, in most cases, they end up going to say bad things about you. And that's the nature of life, unfortunately. Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, مَا نَذَرْتُ عَالِمًا إِلَّا غَلَبْتُهُ وَمَا نَذَرْتُ جَاهِلًا إِلَّا غَلَبَنِي. I never debated with a learning man except that I won. And I never debated with an ignorant man except that the ignorant man beat me. As they say, he will beat you with experience because he's been ignorant for a long time. So someone that you beat, you outwit, you put them in checkmate, they're going to take it personal. And they have the upper hand. You're my son. Are you telling me that I'm wrong? Are you telling me that our forefathers and ancestors, they were wrong all of those years? Yes, I am. And if you have the guts to say that, then we all know the consequences. So never argue. Prove your point, prove your argument through actions. Bottom line. And even if you do have to suffer and they still want to come after you later on, it's not, hopefully it won't be as bad. And we learn that from the story of Ibrahim. If the idols have the spirits in them, if they can do this thing, then ask them. Fuck them. See what they say to you. Could they stop me from chopping them to pieces with this hatchet? So how can they help you? Critical thought. Right? That's first and foremost. So try to prove your point through an example. This is how we should do things. No, that's foreign to our culture. Okay, no problem. Bank accounts, house, this and that, cars, things that are very different from back home. A part of the American dream that you, mother and father, have adopted. And the only reason why you've adopted this practice, not because you had to or you're forced, because you know that it makes more sense to do it this way. That's just the bottom line. So if that's the case with this one thing, maybe you need to rethink this issue here, but not through argument. Secondly, bidnillahi ta'ala, is that you have to realize is that sometimes you don't do a thing for yourself. Sometimes you have to do it for others, as I said. And we should learn that from the civil rights movement, in which all of us are in debt. We're all indebted to that movement, whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you want to show your thanks to it or not. We're all in debt to that movement, which is a very old movement. Civil rights didn't start with Dr. Martin Luther King, nor did it end with Dr. Martin Luther King. It's older than that. But if you want to just pop up an iconic figure, we would say that. So those people who were hanged, those women that were raped, those people that were beaten, those people that were attacked, and all of the things that they went through, don't you think it was easy for them to quit and give up? Don't you think it was easy for them to just continue living how things were over the, it's no big deal. It's not making a big difference. But they did it because they knew there would become people after them. And they wanted to blaze the trail. So even if it's too late for you, or you really don't care, just think about your little brother and your little sister. You want them to suffer like that? You want your little daughter, you want your little sister to be in that relationship with this abusive man, a man that doesn't like her, doesn't care about her? You really want that for your little sister? That's messed up if you think about it. So I have to say something. I have to speak out against it. Not because I care or I need, but it's not right for the people that come after me. All right? So you have to be in that mindset that it's bigger than you. Remove yourself from the battlefield with regards to your parents and the cultural wars. Thirdly, try your best bidnillahi ta'ala to find neutral ground. Meet them at midfield. Do the coin toss at midfield. Inshallah ta'ala. Not in your end zone, not at their red zone. Try to meet them in neutral ground and then work your way and navigate through that. Also, make sure that you show the utmost respect to your parents and you have good character. And you don't leave any opening for them to attack you or say you're a bad son or a bad person or you're this or you're that. You're backwards, you're late, you get bad grades. You're telling me that what I'm doing is haram, but you don't clean your room. You're telling me that this is a sin and this is a bid'ah, but you oversleep for Fajr. You're telling me this and you're telling me that, but look at the stuff on your computer. I saw it. You didn't erase all of it. We went through the history. We went through the tabs that you just closed, recently closed tabs. Right? So you're a saint with regards to this issue, but this is the stuff that you're watching, son. How does that make sense? So you got to make sure that you're clean, that you're straight, that you're strong, before you tell someone else what they're doing is wrong. Also, remove yourself from the battlefield once again. I learned this. Because they can easily attack you, but they can't do that so easily with this sheikh. This is what he taught me. This is what I learned. This is the hadith that he showed us. And the easiest thing is for him to say, you have a misunderstanding of the hadith. Could you watch this clip on me? And he clearly explains the clip. There's no interpretation to be made. So it's not my poor understanding of the hadith. This is a learned scholar from our country, from back home, or this country who said this. So you got to be wise. You got to be smart. You got to learn how to outflank your opponent, quote unquote. Your mother and your parents, inshallah, not your opponents. But speaking metaphorically, it's a battle. You can't just a direct frontal assault isn't the way to go. Don't argue. Try to be the best son. Try to excel the most you can. Never put yourself as being the proponent of the argument. Right? As far as if you have a mother or father who's open, who's willing to listen, who's willing to talk, that's a different story. Some fathers, they like that when their sons are, I'm happy my son is disagreeing with me. I'm happy my son is strong enough to think by himself. I'm proud of that. But most fathers, most mothers, they want children that just want to, just obey and be quiet and follow. And that's because the last piece of advice is have mercy on your parents. Have compassion. Your parents, in most cases, are victims of their culture and their society. It was done to them, and that's the only thing that they know how to do. They were told no. They were told you have to do this, you can't do that. So therefore, hurt people, they do what? They what? Hurt people. But somebody has to break that cycle. And Allah surely knows best. That's in brief. Well, yeah, I can. Nah, Maki.
Mental health and drug abuse is a big problem in our community.
I'm sorry, to do what?
I said mental health and drug abuse.
Mental health and drug abuse.
Maybe what advice do you have for us on that?
Mental health and drug abuse. Well, my first piece of advice is beware of trends. Beware of that which is catchy and flashy and trendy. And from that is mental health. Every time Dick and Harry, Bakr, Amr, Zayd, this one, that one, mental health, mental health. Everybody and their mom or mama or whatever is an expert on mental health. Everybody's talking about it. Is this not the case? Everybody's talking mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health. And that's the reason behind it is trendy. Mental health isn't a new issue or problem. People have been crazy, deranged, insane. People have been suffering from mental problems since the beginning of time. It's nothing new. And many people, they think that it's just a modern thing. Lie. It's number one. Number two, most of the people who talk about mental health, they themselves suffer from it. People that call people names, you're a narcissist, narcissistic, da 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 da. They call you yourself or what? Pointing a finger at somebody means what? If you look at someone in your rearview mirror, that means they can also what? Everyone understand this? So beware of just, tagging along. Mental health, mental health. Is mental health an important issue, an important topic? Yes, it is, of course. What does Islam teach us about mental health? Many things. And mental illness. So my first point of advice, piece of advice, is beware of the trend. Don't just get caught up in the folly. Number two is, you have to learn that there are levels of mental health, mental illness. And the greatest type of illness of the mind is being ignorant of Allah, and not knowing Allah, worshiping other than Allah. And that is why the mind was created. That's why the body, that's why everything is in existence, to obey, to worship, to submit to Allah, to mention Allah, to praise Allah, to follow Allah, what Allah wants from us. So therefore, kufr and shirk, atheism, secularism, this ism, staying away from the deen, how can that be the solution? Rather, that is the cause of the mental problems. Number three is dua and adhkar. And if you ask me, one of the greatest, if not the greatest cause of mental health is sadness, grief, and worry. Al-ham wal-hazan. Al-ham is grief or fear of the future. And hazan is you suffering and shivering and having nightmares from the past. And the Quran and Sunnah vividly negates suffering in both directions. فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ. Think about that. أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. All the time about the fruits, right? Allah talks about Jannah. The people in Jannah. Nothing will they be afraid of in the future. Nothing will they worry about what they have left behind in the dunya. And one of the reasons behind this is that is the main cause of mental disturbance or illness. This person molested me, raped me, beat me up, bullied me, neglected me, did this to me. In the past, I'm a grown man and I'm suffering from that childhood abuse. When? Now, the trauma. I'm afraid of going bankrupt. I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid of doing this. I'm afraid of leaving this. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid. I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. That is the fear of potential trauma. So if I'm constantly suffering from the past, worrying about the future, my current state is going to be what? Shambles. So with regards to preventing yourself from mental illness, maintaining your correct mental health, etc., you have to make dua. You have to be in connection with your Creator. And that is why the Prophet, he made that dua. And that is why Allah told us about that the people of Jannah, they won't suffer from the past, nor will they fear with regards to the future. So make dua to Allah to protect you from mental illness, to give you happiness, to remove sadness from you, depression from you, so on and so forth. Right? And of course, your diet, what you eat contributes to your mental stability or lack of mental stability. I'm not a health guru, nor am I some type of, green tea type of, levitating health type of person like that. Let's keep it real. I have bad habits, certain things that I eat, but let's be honest. The stuff that we drink and eat, how does that make our bodies react? What chemicals are we putting in our bodies? Right? So this is a big issue. Who you hang out with, your friends, your expectations, like you said, looking up all the time, right? Being in competition all the time, being engaged and stimulated 24/7. So, of course, we can't change everything. And most people who try to change everything overnight, they crash into the wall. History has taught us that. When you try to fix every problem overnight, in most cases, you'll fail. The bottom line is there's certain things that you can do to prevent mental illness. There are things you can do to lessen the mental illness that you're suffering from. And there are things that you can do to maintain and to keep a good watch over your mental health and stability. That's in brief. It's a long discussion. And many lectures we've done on that. Wallahu ta'ala. Naam? I'm sorry? Khair, inshallah. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention, for your respect, for your participation. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.